So, as you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, there's just no real way to sugarcoat it. I broke my arm. There's not going to be any like B-roll in this. I'm not going to do captions. I'm not going to be doing subtitles, chapters, stuff like that. For obvious reasons. Um, but yeah, this is going to be kind of a rant video. This is going to be just me talking, free flow, just whatever comes to mind. About how I managed to break my arm. It all started on June 16th, and it was basically a go kart incident. We were barbecuing. I had a friend, um, good friends with my parents. His son lives up in Portland. He was gonna come down to visit. We were gonna see his girlfriend. Um, first impressions and all that. Um, and so we decided that on June 16th we were gonna have a barbecue. We were gonna party, have fun, yada yada yada. Uh, and my dad, he's a farmer, so he uh throughout his 40 years of farming, managed to get a go kart because, when you're a farmer, you have a lot of land. Might as well get a go kart, have some fun. Why not? Um, so yeah, he retired after 40 plus years of farming, and we got this property with about 5 to 6 acres. So kept the go kart, and we had it around, and we thought, hey, having get together, let's start with the go kart, make sure everything's all good. That it drives well. So I took it out for a spin. After my dad filled it up with gas, made sure all the oil was good and everything was good, pressure on the tires, stuff like that. That it was basically good to go to drive. So I drove around the property for a bit while waiting for them to arrive, and I was having a lot of fun. Uh, Go karts are pretty fun. It's pretty exhilarating. You can go pretty fast in those things, and I'm not talking about like uh, the racing go karts that you see from time to time. I'm talking about like it's like a pretty sizable like off road go kart. Uh, it's pretty serious. Um, and with something like that, something so big, something so that can go really fast. Uh, you don't think for a second that you can flip, you can flip a go kart because it's heavy machinery. Uh, you can go pretty fast, you can turn pretty hard, but you really gotta gun it to manage to flip a go kart because those things are heavy. So I'm driving, just chilling, going pretty fast. I'm getting pretty comfortable with it, and at some point, I'm really feeling it. I'm really gunning for it. I'm going pretty fast. I'm trying to drift essentially in a go kart, which is already not the best decision in the world. Um, but you're having fun. You're being a little reckless. You're pushing your boundaries, pushing your limits a little bit. So you know, no harm, no foul. Guests arrive, and I'm in the front, kind of the front yard essentially, and I see them, and I notice that the guests are here. Let's call it quits for now, and greet the guests. So they wave to me, I wave back while I'm driving, and I'm essentially on my last lap before I, you know, turn it off and get out and greet them. And this particular last lap, last turn, last whatever you will, I had a bad feeling. Uh, I, you know, like spidey sense, sixth sense, stuff like that. You can tell something bad's gonna happen. You can tell that you have this feeling. You don't know, what it is. You don't know why. You can't exactly explain it, but it's just this feeling. You know something's gonna happen. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good or bad. You just know something is going to happen real soon. And it did. Um, Essentially, I had gone down because our property is kind of elevated and there's a little like slope, if you will. I went down that slope, and then there's kind of flat land, and I was driving really fast down it. And I thought, I'd turn to the right while going pretty fast, essentially drifting. That's not the best idea because when you're going really fast and you try to take a turn while not hitting the brakes, slowing down, um, you essentially are asking to flip over a go kart, and a go kart is not light by any means. It's a great testament. It's a great feat to manage to flip a go kart while not hitting anything, not hitting, a ramp or a bump, a hill, a mound. It's just flat terrain, and managing to flip something like that. That's crazy. But I managed to do that. I, uh, there's it's an old go kart, so there's the brake line was cut, and it didn't even occur to me once to even hit the brakes because I was so comfortable with it that I thought, I'll be fine. Just another turn, one last turn, and then I'm gonna head over to the main house and talk to them. That didn't happen. Um, what did happen was that I was going really fast. I turned to the right, and all of a sudden, I was on two wheels for like a solid second, maybe even two. And that was when I knew like oh shit, oh fuck, like this is happening. That feeling of something's gonna happen is now happening. I'm living in it essentially. Um, and uh, at some point, there's essentially a point of no return. You can try to do things. For instance, if you're tipping to the left, if you're driving straight and you're taking a right turn and you start to tip over on your left, you can try to shift your body weight to the right. You can try to turn the steering wheel to the left. You can try to hit the brakes and hope for the best. But at some point, you reach a point of no return where you can do any of those things. You can do all those things. But at some point, that balance is gone. And you know, if you're too late, you're gonna tip over. Now, driving too fast is usually not good. Turning too hard is usually not good. Flipping over is also definitely not a good thing to happen. But the cardinal sin at that point in time, uh, in comparison to all those things, if there was one mistake that I made, it's not tucking in. Whenever you're in cases like that, you should always tuck in because the go kart, this specific go kart had a metal cage, if you will. So if it flips, you're essentially protected so long as you don't stick anything out. Now, a little bit of foreshadowing. I did not do that. I did not tuck. I didn't tuck my arms. I didn't tuck over my head to protect my head, my neck. Um, I didn't do this. I had essentially stuck my arm out. So when it was flipping to the left and it had flipped over, not rolled, but flipped, my left arm was extended outwards uh, past the metal cage, the metal bars. So what made first contact wasn't the metal bar, it was my left arm, or rather my left hand, essentially my left arm. When you're hitting the ground with one point of contact, that point of contact being your arm or your hand, and you have the weight of not only yourself but a go-kart that tips over, and you're trying to brace with your hand that does not go well. So I tipped the go kart and my arm immediately broke on impact. The fascinating thing about the human body is that when you get into a major injury or accident or something happens, essentially, your body is great at negating that feeling of pain and stuff like that for the first minute because you essentially go into shock. Your body, starts producing a bunch of adrenaline, so you feel normal. You aren't normal, but you feel normal. There's a lot of pain, but you don't feel it. I didn't notice that I had broken my arm until one, there was numbness when I tried to move it, and two, when I looked at my arm and I could see that it was swollen to all hell. Um, that was bad. And, you know, physically speaking, I felt fine because I, had a bunch of adrenaline. I was under shock. I was good for the first minute or so. I wasn't good mentally because I knew I had broken my arm because I could see my arm broken, both my bones broken. It was a clean break. Um, so I knew I had broken something, and no amount of adrenaline can prevent you from thinking and knowing that, oh shoot, I have a major injury here. I had really broken something. Um, you know how your wrist, it's pretty flexible. You can move your hand, up, down, left, right. You can rotate it, stuff like that. Um, for a wrist, that's obviously normal. That's how it's supposed to be. What's not normal is when your arm does that. Um, that's not good. That's essentially what happened with my left arm right about at this point right here. Uh if my arm was at a certain angle, it was just flopping. Kind of like it was just dangling like that. Um I couldn't move it obviously because both my bones, my ulna and my radius, were absolutely severed. Internally, like the bones were completely broken, so I couldn't move it. Um, and so shock, when you go into shock, it doesn't last forever. When you have that adrenaline pumping, it doesn't last forever. So I climbed. The go kart was still on its side because I flipped it. Uh, I tried to roll it back because I was worried about the gas and the oil, mixing together. But obviously, my left arm was absolutely broken. Couldn't move it, so I couldn't pick it up. Couldn't flip it back. So I was like, ah, shoot, okay. And that was the time when I saw my arm, and I was like, okay, well, I gotta do something. And because you feel fine, you can actually make it pretty far. I like to, in that point in time, I like to call it like the Wanderer's Walk or whatever. Something in that realm where something's wrong, but you feel okay. So you kind of just walk in a daze. You don't really know what you're doing. You don't really know what to do because you obviously have this major injury going on. But you feel fine. It's just this kind of weird feeling. And so I had probably walked like 100 yards away from the go kart where I initially had flipped it, and I was getting closer to the house. And then the adrenaline wore off. I went out of shock, and at that point, there's very little stopping that pain because when the adrenaline wears off, the pain kicks in. You can feel all your muscles, your tendons, your nerves. You can feel all that there's something wrong. Depending on the injury, you could have internal bleeding. You could have severed a nerve. You could have if you have an open fracture where your bone is sticking out, protruding out of your skin, penetrated your skin and is externally exposed, that's really, really bad. Because of, bleeding, infection, all those things. It's just a really bad time. I luckily didn't have that. I just had uh, a single fracture in both of my bones, so two fractures, but it wasn't an open fracture. It wasn't multiple broken in multiple parts. Luckily, uh, but when I had walked those 100 yards, when I had gone out of shock, when I had gone out of lost all the adrenaline, I immediately started to feel sick. Um, if it's like minor injuries and stuff like that, you might feel a little kind of like something's wrong. But usually, you might feel pain, you might feel a little kind of a little nauseous maybe, but typically you're okay. When you have something like this, when you're breaking bones, if you have like a major injury, uh, you're in trouble. Um, you don't feel good immediately. That's how I felt. Because I immediately fell to the ground. Uh, I didn't like flop on the ground, but like I took a knee. I was careful to go on the ground, and I felt like I was dizzy. I felt like I was dazed. I felt nauseous. I felt like I was gonna throw up. I felt like I was in a lot of pain. I felt like I was honestly, I felt like I was gonna die. Like like no, you never hear of someone like dying from like a broken arm. Um, but when you're 20 years old, when you're someone who's never broken anything ever, when you're like a particularly cautious person who doesn't do anything too reckless usually, and then you have like a major accident and you have a major injury on your hands or well rather arm, um, it's shocking. You think like holy shit, I've never experienced this before. Like oh my god, am I gonna die? Like, am is this it? Like I feel like I was gonna go into a coma. Like I felt like I was gonna become unconscious because I was so out of it because there was no more adrenaline. I was coming out of shock, and so luckily I had my phone on me and I had called my dad. And the last thing I wanted was to ruin because it was a barbecue. It was supposed to be a time of celebration. Seeing first impressions and stuff like that with my friend's girlfriend stuff like that. And the last thing I wanted to tell them was like I got into an accident. I broke my arm. I'm not good. But I had to obviously. So I called my dad and I told him like, hey, I'm in like the far side of the property. I flipped the go kart and I think I broke my arm and I'm laying on the ground right now. And he was shocked, and I would be shocked too. I think anyone would be shocked. 'Cause that's the last thing you expect. The last thing you expect is someone, get into a major incident when like you saw them driving, having fun like less than a minute ago. Literally saw them and like they were fine. Now all of a sudden, go karts flipped. I have a broken arm. I'm laying on the ground on my back. I'm dehydrated. I feel like I'm dying essentially. So then they all came over. The guests, my parents. They they were surprised. They were shocked. I think my mom was crying. Um, and yeah, luckily, my friend is in the medical field. His brother, older brother, is in the medical field. His girlfriend is in the medical field. So I was really lucky to have like half of the people there um, be in the medical profession in some way, shape, or form. Uh, so they they got a plank, essentially got a plank to stabilize my arm so that it wouldn't, I wouldn't, it would have a stable structure, flat structure, so that my arm wouldn't be kind of like curved or anything. Like it'd be stable. And then they got some scarves so that they could, uh, stabilize my hand further, make it like a sling, like a kind of like a wilderness sling, if you will. Um, but it was bad. It was bad. So bad to the point where my friend actually got nauseous himself. He felt like he was gonna throw up too. I think that's he works in the medical field, so on one hand, it shouldn't. It's kind of surprising, but on the other hand, I think it's because of that personal level. Like when you're dealing with strangers, it's one thing. Like it's very routine, very procedural. You have your list. General steps to follow. But when it's someone and it's personal, I think it hits a lot differently, and it affects people a lot differently. Uh, so yeah, I was on the ground for probably 10 to 15 minutes before they brought one of the cars down there, and I got in, and they took me to the local hospital. Um, when I went there, it's probably quite a few hours there. Essentially, they said, minor injury. If it was a open fracture, so if your bone was protruding out of your skin, it would be major. I had to do like emergency surgery, urgent care, stuff like that. But because it was a internal fracture, so nothing was protruding or anything like that, they basically gave me a sling and they sent me home. Now, that's kind of weird to me because a lot of the staff who talked to me saw my injury and they were like, "Oh my god, like damn. Like that that is a one of the worst one of the worst fractures we've ever seen." Um and honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it really is like a quote unquote minor fracture. Like it could have been a lot worse in the grand scheme of things. I could have like hit my head. I could have broke something on my neck, my spine. I could have hurt a lot more important parts of my body if I was really unlucky. Um, breaking an arm is probably one of the like if you had to break something, if it was like if it was inevitable, I was gonna break something. Breaking an arm is probably one of the better case scenarios. Um, so I got lucky in that regard, and the actual like the types of injuries I could have gotten, the type of fractures I could have gotten. This is one of the more tame ones where you just break a bone, or in this case, bones, in one spot is relatively common and relatively easy isn't the best word for this, but I don't have a better word. So easy, I guess. Because if it's like multiple fractures or fragments of bone that are displaced, or if it's like I said, like a open fracture where there's risk of infection in the bone and bleeding and stuff like that's bad. But in terms of like my actual injury itself, like it's probably one of the worst like single fracture uh they've the people that talked to me have ever seen, and they made it clear that like you really broke your arm, like because it was bad. I had a clean cut on my a smaller bone here, and I have another clean cut right here on my bigger bone. So it's kind of like this, if you will, kind of right here and right here. It was a clean break though. So yeah, I was really surprised because I was basically essentially getting mixed feelings because on the one hand I was sent home the same day. They didn't take me in, they didn't give me surgery or anything. They just told me, put on the sling and just let it, let the swelling, die down and stuff like that. So to me, that's like okay, it's not that bad. But on the flip side, literally everyone, all the staff that talked to me told me, yeah, this is a really bad injury. Like, holy crap. Yeah, you really, gunned it. You really did your arm dirty. Um, so yeah, I was surprised by that. And I saw the X-ray. I knew that it was bad, and they told me that you both broke your bones, so that was confirmed. It was basically like a puzzle piece, like imagine like two puzzle pieces, um, because basically from my hands to right here and from right here all the way down, it basically it looked fine, it looked normal. But it was just that there were two clean kind of breaks. So it essentially looked like you could put it back together, just like that. Obviously not that simple, obviously a lot more complex, but it looked like that because of how clean the break was. It was literally as clean as you could get. Um, it goes without saying that it was also displaced. Displaced being where non-displaced is where there's like a fracture, but the bones are well aligned enough to where uh, you can like put on a splint or something, or it can just heal normally. Displaced is where your bones are not aligned, so they have to uh, do reduction and all that to realign your bones and all that. Um, so yeah, it was bad. Um, Obviously I couldn't just be in a sling or a splint forever because there was literally no way that my arm would heal normally. It would literally uh it just would not heal properly because the bones weren't even remotely like close to each other, like, at all. Um and my arm would basically be messed up if it was just like left like that. So went we went to a second hospital, and they essentially told me like yeah, that's bad. If it was uh just the ulna or just the radius fracture and the other bone was intact, uh you could put on a sling or a splint and just let it uh kind of heal on its own essentially for a couple months. Maybe they had to do some reduction and stuff like that, but like generally speaking, they well more like case by case basis, but usually that you wouldn't have to do surgery. But when you break both bones, both the ulna and the radius, it's basically necessary, basically guaranteed that you're going to be doing surgery. And for me, the thought of surgery was is kind of frightening because my dad has gone through a lot of surgery, so I'm not I wouldn't say that it's a foreign concept to me. I've seen his he has scars and stuff like that. Um, and they made incisions on him and stuff like that. So I've seen it. But when it hits different when you're the one who has to have the procedure on them. When you're the one that they're cutting into you and putting stuff into you, it just it's something. It's very I don't know how to explain it, but I guess it's not eye opening necessarily, but it's an experience. Um, and I got lucky because the this my surgery was the same day of my initial appointment, um my initial examination. So it was I think it was June 21st was when my initial appointment was. So they would take x-rays, and I mean, well, wow, they did take x-rays, and the doctor looked at it and said, yeah, like you need surgery, like your arm's not going to heal normally, like it just there's nothing we can't do uh anything because there's no structure. There's because you both broke your bones. Like we have to go in there and make incisions in you, and then put in metal plates and screws so that your bones can be realigned and then can heal after 6 months to a year. Um, that thought, like at that moment, um, that was scary because as a 20-year-old guy who's, I said it before earlier, but like 20-year-old guy, pretty cautious. I never thought that I was gonna break a bone. I never thought that I would have done like I had like a major injury ever in my life, ever. Um, the thought of like putting permanent stuff into me or on me or whatever, I'm never a big fan of that. Um, like to each their own, like you to you. But like the concept of like piercings or like tattoos were never something that I was a big fan of because I just don't like putting permanent shit into your body or on your body. It's just not my thing. Not really. If other people do that, that's cool. But like for me personally, like nah. So the thought of having them put metal plates in me to keep my bones aligned and to essentially fix it um was really worrying because I'm not the thought of having permanent stuff, um permanent things in your body just kind of like, I mean, I had to live with this forever, not forever, for the rest of my life essentially. um and I'm gonna have two large incisions because they need to put one metal plate and screws on one of the bones and another metal plate and screws on the other one, and they can't just do it with one incision. They have to do two. And these aren't like little incisions. Like if you have like a so if you have to have surgery on your hand or something, the biggest like line is gonna be something like, it's not gonna be that big. It might be like this big or something. When you're talking about an arm injury, I think it's literally like this. It's like this big. My incision is about this big right here, and the other one's a little bit smaller, but it's still really sizable. Um, and obviously, when you have these types of incisions or cuts or injuries, um, there's gonna be scarring. There's gonna be scar tissue, stuff like that. And that's another layer of that whole idea of permanent stuff that I'm not a big fan of. But it's for in this case, it's the only option. I have to have surgery. I have to have these incisions. I have to have these metal plates in me, and I essentially have to have these scars on me because it doesn't go, they won't go away. Like those scars are gonna be there. Those incisions are gonna remain on my arm for the rest of my life. Like it's not gonna go away. It'll get smaller. Um, it might get covered up by new tissue, uh, but it's not gonna go away. So but yeah, there's just there's accidents happen. Nothing could be done. And I'm kind of coming to terms with that. Um, so yeah. Uh, but yeah, after that second the surgery and all that, they put me in a it's not really a cast, but kind of like it's kind of like a wrap. And the first hospital did it too. Um, it's essentially I don't know. It's just kind of it's like a cross between a wrap and a cast. It gets part of it is hard. It gets hard through temperature, but it's still like malleable and soft. It's kind of interesting. So there's enough flexibility for you to like move your arm and all that and kind of readjust. But it's also hard enough to where it keeps your arm immobile so it can heal properly and let the swelling die down and all that. Really interesting. Um, but then after the surgery, they gave me a new wrap and all that, and gave me some medicine, oral medication, um, and they also gave me this nerve block, which they inserted into my kind of shoulder blade, I would say, or near neck area. I don't know which one it was. But basically, it would numb my entire arm which is meant to relieve pain. Essentially, it's to prevent you from taking too much oral medication because you get your aspirin, you get your there's ibuprofen, there's acetaminophen, which is Tylenol. But they also give you, anti infection, antibacterial medicine. But they also give you, the first hospital gave me hydrocodone, and the second one gave me um, oxycodone. And those two are opioids. Opioids are highly addictive. So they give you, you can opt for nerve block, which isn't addictive. It isn't, I think it's like Novocaine, which is essentially what they give you when they remove your wisdom teeth. Um, that's not addictive, and it's to prevent. It's basically one, negate as much pain as possible, and two, to prevent you from using oral medication. Because with oral medication, there are complications as well. You might, it could be pretty mild, where you might feel, a little nauseous. You might need to take it with food. There might have, bowel and stool issues, and all that. Sometimes it's actually rather serious, where it could actually, in large doses, um, it could hurt your liver. If you take it with alcohol, it could be really devastating. It just depends. But yeah, uh, essentially, don't take as prescribed. And especially with the opioids, those that's like last resort, because you don't want to be taking opioids. I did have to take one, um because like with with this kind of injury, like, oof, it's the pain you can feel is like, you can be feeling fine, and then all of a sudden there can just be immense pain. It can be a burning pain, it can be constant pain, it can be sharp pain. Like, you don't know what it's gonna be. It just like creeps on you. um and stuff like that, and especially at night. In the day, it's manageable, but especially at night, it's a bad time. It's not good. And that's really bad, because it prevents you from getting sleep. It might wake you up at night. Um, I don't. I think it's like it has something to do with like either the cold air or how your body manages at night, how it acts, and all that, how it functions at night. Uh, so you can really feel the pain. You can really feel that your body is, there's obviously pain. There's obviously swelling. There's just a lot going on, and it's not particularly fun. Um, but yeah, they had me on medicine for the first hospital was about a week, and then the second hospital was probably another week on medicine. And so, after 1 week, so 1 week post op, so post surgery, um, I came in for a follow up, um, and that's essentially to make sure that everything's good, make sure that the screws are properly placed, that the operation went well, that your bones are aligned, that nothing, no complications. Essentially, that's what the follow up is for, just to make sure that everything's going smoothly. And yeah, it was good. Like, I saw the X-rays. I saw, it's a little harrowing to see your arm filled with metal plates and screws like that. That's it's not a sight that you want to see. You don't usually want to have an injury like that. You don't want to see stuff like that in general, but especially when it's your own arm, when it's your X-rays. Like, man, like, damn, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have gone that fast. Sometimes you feel a little regretful, but that's just how it is. You just gotta live with stuff like that. Um, but yeah, after the follow up, I basically went in for I guess it's a splint. I think it's a splint. But yeah, a splint. And this is essentially, I think it's for I really don't know what it is for straightening my arm, makes immobilizing my arm. It or like a support, I guess. Essentially, I'm supposed to only use this when I'm lifting things that are less than 5 pounds or I'm sleeping. Um, which means I shouldn't even have this on right now, regardless. Um, so yeah, I should probably take this off. Uh, but anyway, um, yeah. Usually people would be in a cast, like an actual mold that's immobilizes your arm, but I think that's only if you that's a non-surgical uh non-surgical procedure. I think. Or maybe it's just with my particular injury that I don't necessarily need a cast or that I need I needed to move my arm as soon as possible. So, because I was looking, especially because I didn't think I was gonna break my arm like ever. So I was doing a bunch of research. Essentially, I was doing a lot of online searching, seeing like what happens when you break your arm. Like what do you have to do? Like what kind of physical therapy do you go to? Um, how long are you going to be in a cast? How long is physical therapy? Am I ever going to be back to normal? Is there permanent damage? Stuff like that. Yada yada yada. All these different searches. And I saw somewhere like you're gonna be in a cast for like 4 to 6 weeks, maybe longer, especially like non-surgical and surgical operations have different times and all that. So I think it was like 4 to 6 weeks for non-surgery and 6 weeks plus for surgery. And I think that was with a cast specifically. So when they told me like, oh yeah, you don't need to be in a cast, you need to start moving your arm ASAP, I was like, what? Like I thought I had to be in a cast for like 6 weeks plus and stuff like that. And again, I don't know if it's the injury, my type of injury or the severity of it. I don't know if it's because I had surgery. I don't know if it's because I had metal plates. I don't know what factors it is, but I don't have to be in a cast. I can. It was they literally told me like you're good enough to immediately start moving your arm and all that. You gotta make sure that you don't uh, keep your arm inactive for too long because of atrophy, and we want you to regain that motor control again, where you can move your fingers, move your arm, uh, because there is numbing, there is pain, uh, minimal pain here and there, but there's still swelling, there's still a lot of numbness. So for instance, my pinky feels fine, perfectly normal, but my ring finger, my pointer finger, and my thumb feel a little bit of numbness, a little bit of tingling, and my middle finger, I basically have no sensation in it whatsoever. So when I go to pick something up, it feels really weird because there's varying degrees of sensation and feeling that I have. Because obviously, when you pick up stuff with a normal hand, it feels fine. But when you have an injury like this, you have to kind of regain all that function again, on motor function. Uh, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the severity of the injury that causes you to have a loss of motion in some regard or something. I don't know if it's atrophy. I don't know if um, it's nerve damage. I don't know if it's the swelling. I don't know if it could be any one of those. It could be all of those. I don't know. Um, Not in the medical field, but yeah. Um, it's kind of to me it's kind of amazing. Um One, because of my injury, like I could have it could have been a lot worse. But two, it seems like I'm healing relatively well. Um because I hear of like, uh people going to surgery and stuff like that, and that's all well and good. But then there's it's kind of like two parts. Like part one, part two, A and B. Where you have the initial injury and you have to remedy that. So whether it be non-surgery, non-surgical, non-operational, or operational or surgical or what have you, um, that's just half of half of your battle. That's just half of the dilemma. Once you get that patched up, once you're in a cast, once you're have those metal plates and surgery and those large incisions in you and all that, that's just part of it. The other part of it is physical therapy. Um, and that the concept of the thought of being in a cast or being in a splint or what have you, or just being having that sense of normality in life essentially stripped away from you for like 6 weeks to a month, to like or a month is 6 weeks or 2 months or what have you. That immobilization is agonizing. It's only been 3 weeks for me, and it's already agonizing. It's already it's tough essentially for me. But the thought of having to be in physical therapy for 2 to 3 months, that's like that's crazy. Um, you know, like, it's almost unbelievable to me. Because 20 year old logic, male logic, like I thought that I had a pretty bad break, pretty bad injury, but I was gonna be good. Like, you know, broken bones, ouch, water in the bridge, whatever, man. I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be playing Halo. I'm gonna be riding that go-kart again in like a month or two. I'm gonna be, making videos. I'm gonna be back to my normal strength in, a couple months. My bones gonna be healing, stuff like that. And it is gonna be healing. But like but yeah, no, I'm in it for the long haul. I have a long road to recovery. I banged up my arm. I broke both my bones. Um, I wish that it was hindsight's 2020. I wish that a miracle could happen. I wish I could just snap my fingers and it would be all good. Or I wish that there was a time machine, or if I had um some kind of like omnipotent like hindsight where if I was to do this at this particular time, if I was to go this fast, or if I was to go on the go-kart on this day, that I was to break my arm, I just wouldn't do that. But obviously that's not how life is. Life isn't perfect. No one's life is perfect. You do stupid things. You get injuries. Sometimes they're worse than others, but you do get them. Sometimes you just lose your life. Like that's how life is. It happens. No, nobody wants to break an arm. Like, I'm almost certain that nobody wants to like be in pain. Essentially, nobody intentionally like goes out of their way to think like, I think breaking my arm would be kind of pog, kind of awesome. Like, no, I really don't think so. Like, no. Um, but that's just how it is. Things happen. Um, so yeah, I start physical therapy next week, and then I think it's actually occupational therapy, not physical therapy. Those are, I guess, there's like two different things. Um, I guess physical therapy is kind of more general. I guess it just kind of like to get your range of motion back, just to make you feel kind of I don't know, normal, I guess. I don't know. There's a better word for it, but it's essentially to get your functionality back, to make you be able to, your range of motion, yada yada yada, all those things, make you get back into your normal, function that you used to have. Occupational therapy, I think, is more kind of specific. It's more specialized in that uh it's very personal, to where like I think they ask you like what are your goals, essentially, like you broke your arm, but like what do you do with your arm, what kind of occupation do you do, like do you like what do you need your what do you usually do with your arm, like folding laundry, do you eat with that hand, do you write with that hand, do you usually use that hand for motor skills, stuff like that. Like, it's very kind of like specialized. It's very tailor made. It's very custom to each person, each case. It just depends. I think that's, at least that's what I heard online and looked up. Um, so like yeah, it's kind of scary. Knowing what could have happened, it's kind of scary that I'm gonna be like this for a while. Um, but honestly, I don't want to think about what could have happened. I just like like there's no way to sugarcoat it. This sucks. Like this sucks. However, I could have, been paralyzed. I could have died. I could have had more injuries. You know, I'm glad that it was just a broken arm. I wish it didn't happen, but life happens. So you gotta take what you can get. You gotta deal with it. You gotta suck it up, essentially. And just move on, and keep going. And so it's what I'm kind of doing. I wanted to make this video like once I was like fully healed. Uh, like once I was done with my therapy, essentially. But something just made me want to make this video right now. I don't know. I guess kind of the initial uh experience and kind of the initial stage of the injury, operation, post op, pre uh pre therapy, I guess. Uh, I don't know. I don't know why I wanted to make this, but I just kind of felt kind of compelled to. Um, but honestly, it kind of like I would probably say that the my worst weeks were probably obviously the initial week where I broke my arm when the injury occurred, but also the second week where I went to surgery. Because the first week was more physical because obviously the injury, I broke my arm. I was under a lot of swelling. I was under a lot of pain. I was under medication. Um, but the second week was kind of more like mental. Where it was I wasn't sure what was gonna happen. I wasn't sure if I was getting surgery. I wasn't sure. There's a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of kind of like questions going on. Um, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't gonna be like paralyzed or anything. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't gonna have permanent damage. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't gonna be, you know, like this um for the next, you know, 6 months, year, couple years, several years, decade, so on and so forth. I didn't want to be like this for the rest of my life. Um Obviously, it's just a broken arm. Uh and it heals, bones heal, injuries heal, scars heal somewhat. Um you know, you you'll you'll make a recovery. And the doctor I had at the second hospital, he had like a 4.8 out of 5. So he was an orthopedic surgeon, orthopedic specialist. He was one of the highest rated doctors, not only in the hospital, I think, but one of the highest rated doctors I've ever seen. So I knew I was in good hands, and he told me post, I think it was post op or um the week following for the follow up, or even like um pre op or something like that. That I was gonna be pretty good. My prognosis was like really good. Um, there was a high chance of me having a full recovery. That I was gonna have you know full motor function again, like full rotation and all that, and full functionality, full sense and all that. Um, it's just gonna take time. Basically, I'm gonna be back to normal. At least supposedly back to normal. Um, as far as functionality goes, in like 3 months, maybe more, but usually 3 months. And my bones will be completely healed within a year. The only thing that's really gonna change from before incident and now, and I guess, well, really, after incident is that I'm basically just gonna have a scar uh, on this side and a scar on this side, and I'm gonna have two metal plates with like 8 screws each, so like 16 screws and two metal plates. Which isn't great. Um, but like I said, there's nothing I can do about it. So, um, but yeah, um, moving forward, there's probably going to be a lot of sessions, a lot of therapy sessions, a lot of occupational therapy discussions and all that with my occupational therapist. Um, but yeah, um, it is a setback. It is kind of like pretty depressing, I would say, especially in the first 2 weeks. Because I wasn't really sure. Like the overarching theme for me, the thoughts that I had were like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know. I don't know what the future for me is like. But doctor gave me the prognosis. It was pretty good. I'm healing relatively well. I don't have a cast. Like, I can move my arm. I can move my hand. I can move my fingers. So like, it just from at this point moving forward, it's just occupational therapy and just kind of getting my range of motion back and the kind of goals I want for recovery and all that. And then ideally, I'll be good in 3 months. And internally speaking, my bones will be good in like 6 months to a year. But yeah, it's been challenging. There's been a lot of downs, that's for sure. Um, but like, I wish I could have made more videos. I wish, like, I was working on like a video that I was pretty pretty passionate on, and I was working on it, getting all the B-roll footage and all that, and my script was done, and I was making progress. I was editing it, and I was close to finishing it, and then this injury happened, and life kind of stops in a sense. Like, obviously life goes on, for sure. The world doesn't stop for you, um, absolutely. But for you, like personally, at least, or for me personally, time it was if like time had slowed, where like it life for me kind of came to a halt. Like my videos came to a halt. Me playing games came to a halt. Me uh reading manga or whatever came to a halt. Like even just like daily activities, just like showering, brushing my teeth, all those types of things, like putting clothes on, just personal hygiene, just like eating, um it all came to a halt. And especially like being like, because I'm left-handed, I have an injury on my left arm. Like damn, like that sucks. For me, luckily, I do a lot of my motor skills on my right hand, so a lot of like picking things up, a lot of like throwing, picking things up, interacting with objects and stuff like that, mainly in my right hand. But more precision things like writing and eating, it's more my left hand. So yeah, writing's a struggle. I remember going to the hospital and having to, do my signature, obviously. Um, and that was kind of hard because trying to write cursive with with the hand you're not dominant with, which you usually don't write with, it makes for some pretty sloppy handwriting for sure. Eating food's kind of hard, especially I went out to eat one night in a Korean restaurant, and trying to use chopsticks is already pretty difficult for me. Being Asian and all, like, oh, you're good with chopsticks. No, I'm not good with chopsticks, but I try. But especially with your right, your hand that you're not really used to eating with and using chopsticks, it's it's a sad attempt. It's pretty sad. But but yeah, you manage. You get better. And if anything, like you you strengthen your other hand because you have to use other hand solely, because you depend on it for literally everything. Because you're down a hand, you're down an arm. So I'm actually getting better with writing on with my right hand and eating with my right hand. So I guess in a sense that I'm kind of right-handed, or rather ambidextrous at least. So it's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, probably about it. Like at this point in time, because first therapy session is next week. So like right now, I kind of feel fine. Like uh, my bones are intact. They got metal plates. They're, the swelling is going down. I got occupational therapy coming up. So like it's not much pain anymore. So I'm kind of feeling better than I was. Yeah, definitely feeling better than I was week 1 and week 2. That's for sure. Um, but yeah, it's been a pretty big obstacle because there's been a lot of things I've been wanting to do, and videos that I was kind of thinking about on making. I just can't really do that, or at least I can't do that as well. Because especially if I'm trying to do the more kind of uh videos that have more b-roll footage, obviously it's a lot harder to move things around, move lighting and move objects around, and move my camera on my tripod, um and record and all that. And it makes it a lot harder, but it's doable. It just takes a bit longer, and script writing and typing. But it's doable. It's just a bit of an obstacle, a bit of a hindrance. But at the end of the day, like I'm still kicking. I'm still alive. I'm not dead. So minor setback. That's not gonna stop me from continuing to make videos. It's not gonna stop me from playing games. Like if I have my controller right here, like I can play games relatively fine if I just take off my splint, and I can play a mean game of Halo, like for sure. You know I'm good in that regard. Like so I'm not I'm not suffering or anything. I'm not like I'm not a little bored out of my mind, I guess. But like I can always watch. I can watch YouTube. I can play games. Like it's not that bad. Not much has really changed. It's just that you know, quality of living is a little different. I gotta be more dependent on my parents and all that for doing regular activities, regular things. That's why it's called occupational therapy. Uh, the one that the doctors recommended to me and referred me to, because I think because physical therapy is just building motion, whereas occupational therapy is doing things, and if you have a job, occupation, everyday activities, stuff like that. So makes sense. But yeah. Um, moral of the story is just like moral of the story is know your limits. Um, you know, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I played a stupid game and I won a stupid prize. Because I was reckless, and went too fast because I was the thrill of it all, the adrenaline was pumping, my heart was racing, and yeah, I paid the price for it. Turned too hard because I wanted to drift. Stuck my arm out, which is that was a decision. Probably shouldn't have done that. I actually should not have done that. Just in general, just don't do that. Bad decision overall. Tuck, protect yourself. Go inwards, not outwards. Um, but you know, wish that wouldn't have happened, but you can't turn back time. You can't snap your fingers and have a miracle. Be patched up in like a couple days. It's not really a thing. Um, but just be careful. Uh, know the risks. Know what could happen. know what can happen, and know that if you push those boundaries, that something can and probably will happen to you, and it's probably not going to be good. It's probably not going to be for the best. You're probably going to get yourself hurt. You're probably going to get injured. You might even get yourself killed. At the same time, you don't know your limits until you push them. You can be the most cautious guy in the world, and life ain't gonna give you any special privileges. It ain't gonna treat you like you're some hot shot. You're tough shit. No, life goes after. It does not discriminate. It goes after anyone, everyone. Um, you get your ups and your highs in life, and you get your downs and you get your lows in life. That's how life is. Just how it is. You have great things in life and you have bad things in life. I was a smart student in growing up. Honor rolls all the time, 4.0s, shit like that. I was book smart. I was good at school, and that was probably my highest in my life. I was smart. I like to think I still am. But you also have your lows. I broke my arm. That's not great. Just shit happens. So you just gotta take the good with the bad and just keep on trucking. But yeah, know that stuff is gonna happen. You can be reckless, and you can get away with a lot of things. You may not break any bones in life for like 20 years, and you're pretty reckless, and you do a lot of quote unquote dangerous things, and you come out unscathed. And at the same time, you could be someone who's absolutely cautious and careful all the time, but that one little slip up, and all of a sudden, you have a broken arm. You go to the hospital. You don't know if you have surgery. You get told you have surgery the day of, same day, and just like that, you're an you're an operation, and you get anesthesia, and you're awake for like another 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden, 3 hours pass, and you're in post op. You're just recovering. You're waking up, and you're all good. Got cuts in your arm, but you got metal plates in you. But you're kicking. You're fine. So just how life is. Yeah, it's unpredictable. You never know what's gonna happen. I didn't wake up June 16th thinking I was gonna break my arm. Nobody does. Nobody knows what's gonna happen in life. Nobody knows what the day has waiting for them. No one knows. It just shit happens. So you just you just deal with it. And some people go through traumatic stuff like that, and like you know they can't handle seeing similar events or actions that happen that are similar to whatever happened to them. Like if you get into a go kart incident, then for some reason you blame go karts or something like that. There's that kind of thing where you get traumatized. For me, it was all user error. I don't blame the go kart, man. I'm gonna be riding that go kart when my arm's all good, man. And 6 months from now, when my bones are all healed, I'm gonna be riding that go kart. You kidding me? Having fun. It was fun. It was fun the entire time when I was riding that thing up until I crashed. But I don't blame the go kart. It's user error, man. Just went too fast, turned too hard. So my arm out and I paid the price. So yeah, life's too short, man. Life's too short to be playing the blame game on shit like that. Just made a mistake, own up to it. That's how it is. That's how it goes. And that's about it. For me, it's kind of like it's kind of like running, like, because I'm a gamer. It's kind of like running a Halo 3 Warhog run, stuff like that. I had that in my head, thinking like I was having fun. Thinking I was Master Chief in the Warhog, just kind of cruising, and then just took a wrong turn, a little too slow, or in this case, a little too fast, and yeah, I paid the price for it. But there's any consolation to all this. I like to joke that I have Spartan augmentation now, because I got metal plates in me now. I got metal work done, so kind of like a honorary Spartan now. So, but it was my favorite game. So It's kind of funny and a little ironic in a sense, but you know, I have fun with it. And I'm sure that at the end of the end of the day, well, rather end of the year, I guess. I'm gonna be having fun with this. I'm gonna be laughing it off, just oh Deck Dame's gonna be coming out like he's Master Chief now, got metal plates in him now. He's got battle scars and shit like that, fighting the Covenant. So yeah, at the end of the day, I'm probably gonna be laughing it off when all this is over, just having fun with it. Right now, it kind of sucks, but I'm sure that once that whole phase wears off, when I'm getting through with my various sessions of therapy, that my bones all healed, I'm gonna think, man, that wasn't, that could have been so much worse. That could have been really bad. That could have been a lot worse. But me sitting here, just talking into a camera, um, it's probably one of the best case scenarios I could have had. Because the injury was pretty bad, but not as bad as it could have been. And for arm injury, just one of the more tame ones. So, uh, but yeah, just life is full of surprises. Life is full of unexpected circumstances that just happen to happen. And yeah, you just take the good with the bad and just keep on going because you only got one life and you gotta go for it, man. You gotta enjoy it while you can. Life's too short. Life is far too short to be worrying about this kind of stuff, man. Just gotta have fun. Just gotta do what you love, do what you want within reason, obviously. But passion and shit like that. Find something you want to do. Find something hobby, passion, job, whatever, man. But yeah. um, yeah, I'll be fine. I'm still here, so not dead, not 6 feet in the ground, so still kicking. And probably the best part about this is that I'll still be making videos. So until then.